Have you ever bonked during a triathlon? Did you ever wonder why? Or did you have it all figured out? Well, I can tell you that I've bonked several times, but I wasn't exactly sure why. But I hope to clarify that for you in this video today. First of all, what is a bonk? Well, here's my definition of it. When you feel like you can't go on, in other words, you can't continue at the pace that you were at before. Generally happens in longer races, half Ironman, full Ironman, but it can happen in shorter races, of course. Possible factors could be nutrition, generally a lack of glycogen, could be hydration and electrolytes, could be a lack of training, or it could be a mental issue, or frankly, it could be a combination of all the above. So, how do you know the cause? Well, first of all, it might be difficult to discern what caused it exactly. This is the problem that I had. Well, if you review the symptoms, it might give you some clues, but as I said, it could be a combination of a number of reasons. What's the danger of bonking? Well, I suppose I didn't list this one on there, but the biggest danger could be that you would die. Hopefully, it's not that serious, but losing consciousness is also a very serious problem, especially if you're on the bike. You could crash on the bike. I've known people that have crashed on the bike because they've bonked before. If you lose consciousness on the run, obviously you could fall and do some serious damage. But also, and this is along the more normal realm, would be to find it harder to recover after your race. And then, of course, below your race, which is really the one that most of us experience. Okay, so avoiding bonking, that's the idea here. And I've alluded to this already previously in this presentation. If you've got adequate fueling, adequate hydration, adequate training, and adequate mental preparedness, the chances of your bonking are going to be minimized. Not eliminated, I would say, but minimized. So, one of the best ways to avoid these problems is to try things out while you're training. And you want to simulate race conditions as much as possible during your training. And that means distances, efforts, climatic conditions, everything as close to race conditions as possible. And obviously, that's not always possible, but do the best you can. So, for example, if you're doing a race in a hot area, if you're going to Kona, for example, try to get into a similar climate when you're doing it. Do some nice long rides and runs to get your body acclimated. See how much fuel and hydration you need. So obviously you want to check your nutrition and hydration before race day. Do some testing on your own, see how many calories you need. I've got some guidelines here in a minute. And then track as accurately as possibly the fuel and hydration and restroom stops that you've made along the way. This will give you good information to help you dial in your performance on race day. So, what's a nutrition bonk look like? Again, estimate your nutrition per hour before racing. And this is really critical on the bike because it's easier to take calories in on the bike than it is on the run, unless, of course, you stop or walk on the run, which you hopefully, try to avoid. Estimate your nutrition per hour before racing. Prepare the nutrition plan in advance. In other words, how often are you going to take nutrition? Now, personally, I take only liquid nutrition when I'm on the bike. I don't take any gels. I don't take any bars. If your stomach will allow that, by all means, do it. My stomach doesn't, so all I take is liquid nutrition. But so the symptoms of a nutrition bonk would typically look like this. You'll start to lack energy. You just won't feel like you've got the energy to continue on, unable to maintain the pace that you're at. If you were turning a certain number of watts on the bike, for example, and you find that, gee, I'm working just as hard, but I've lost, watts on the bike, then that's a good indication that you're losing, that you're not keeping up with your nutrition. And then a key one is your heart rate will drop with your pace. So you won't be able to maintain a heart rate. So if you've got a target, on the bike of trying to maintain 140 heart rate, and you find like, wow, I'm working really hard here, but your heart rate's going down, your pace is going down, that's a good indication that you're experiencing nutrition bonk. What about a hydration bonk? Again, before the race, estimate your hydration per hour before racing. Get this dialed in, do sweat tests, and again, prepare your hydration plan. How often am I going to drink? How much am I going to drink? Get a really good feel for, how many bottles on the bike you're going to drink and how often you're going to drink while you're on the run. So symptoms here on the hydration bonk are when you stop sweating. That's a clear indication that you're not getting enough fluids. And you might say, well, some races are dry and maybe my sweat's drying up. That's possible, but you still should be sweating to a certain degree, and it will dry up in a drier environment. Dizzy or a headache. These are also a good indication of a hydration bomb. Your heart rate is going up while your pace drops. Again, a very good indication. It's like, well, I'm going along at the same pace, but now my heart rate's going up. And then, of course, cramping. And who hasn't experienced that one? Next is a training bonk. In other words, you haven't trained adequately for your race or the pace that you're currently under. So, did you execute your training plan? First of all, did you have a good training plan? And of course, if you're coach, I would tell you, let's dial in your training plan and make sure it's adequate to meet your goals on race day. And TriDot helps me and my athletes do just that. And then not only did you execute your training plan, but did you execute your race plan? And too many times, and I've been guilty of this as well, we have a plan, and as soon as we get to race day, we abandon it right away. We go out too hard, and we because we feel great. I did this once in fact, my first race at the Ironman World Championships in Kona. I got on the bike and I took off, and I was feeling great. And I'm coming uh, back down from the turnaround on Kuakini Highway, and I looked down at my watts, and I'm pushing 240 watts. It's like, well, it'd be great if I could do that, but that's not something that I was able to maintain as a 55-year-old guy. And then how was the quality of your training? It's not just a matter of, flogging yourself and getting through your training, but what was the quality of it? Did you hit your targets? Was your heart rate and effort in line with your training plan? So symptoms here would be fatigue. And again, I mentioned racing over your abilities. If you're getting tired sooner than you should, that could be a clear indication of training bonk. And cramping again could be another one. And then finally, a mental bonk, and this one kind of comes along with one or more of the other methods of bonking. It's hard to stay in the game mentally if you've got one of these other conditions going on. So, did you prepare for the race mentally? And we talk about the mental game, and I think a lot of us just give it lip service. We don't take it as seriously as we should. And if you do, I think you'll be better served. Um, uh, Review your successful sessions is one of the ways of overcoming a mental block. So, in other words, when out on the race and I'm feeling, pretty tired, I'm not keeping up with the pace that I wanted to, I can reflect back in my mind, about some of the hard bikes, some of the hard runs that I've performed before, and say, hey, you know what? I got this. I can make this happen. And the symptoms are, and again, this is another one that I'm very guilty of, is negative self-talk. And I find this happens to me mostly on the swim. I'm above average swimmer for the guys in my age group, but I'll get out there and I'll just say, you know what, I'm not having any fun here. I'm getting beat up. I'm not going as fast as I'd like to. I'm feeling extra tired. I'm hyperventilating. So I'm focusing on all the negative stuff. And that is definitely one way to get into that mental bonk mode. Feeling unmotivated. It's hard to stay motivated. And whatever method you can use to get yourself, get your head back in the game, do it. And if you feel like quitting, that's another indication that you've got a mental bonk going on. And like I say, those are the mental bonk usually accompanies one or more of the other methods of bonking. So on the nutrition side, I mentioned this before, test your nutrition for your long bikes and runs. The sessions should be close to race conditions. And here are some guidelines for you. And again, you can get these dialed in. There's apps on the internet that'll help you do this. But in general, 50 to 100 grams of carbs per hour on the bike is a really good target. I shoot for 75, 200 to 400 calories per hour on the bike. I shoot for 300, and I dial in my liquid nutrition to do just exactly that. And then it's harder to take in the nutrition on the run. So I usually shoot for about half those numbers on the run, just because it's harder to get the nutrition down. And, uh, it's hopefully if you fuel properly during the bike, that'll be sufficient to get you through. Hydration guidelines, start with a sweat rate test. Again, it's a simple formula. You can find it all over the internet. Do that and then test yourself during your long sessions. How much did I sweat out? How many fluids did I take in? Did I urinate during the session? How much was it? But try to make those testing sessions as close to the real race conditions as possible. And here it's about a half a bottle to a full bottle per hour. That's a 16-ounce bottle or 500 milliliters. And these are just kind of general guidelines that I found that work for me. So on a full Ironman, I attempt I shoot to pee 2 times on the bike, but I'll be satisfied if I can pee once on the bike. And if I can pee once on the run, I know that I've done fairly well in an Ironman. In a 70.3, it's more difficult to do that. So I aim to pee at least once minimum, and that could be sometime during the bike or during T2. But that'll give you a ballpark on how well you're doing. When you do bonk, make sure you refuel and rehydrate. Um, try to keep your head in the game so you don't have to drop out. This is a picture of Julie Moss on this slide, by the way, famous slide way back in the day. And Julie had a major bonk and literally crawled across the finish line. But if you do bonk, refuel, rehydrate, slow things down. You can frequently get back in the game if you take your time. So don't drop out right away. Try to get back in, uh, nutritionally, with your hydration, and keep your head in the game. Breathe, stretch, take a little time, and then go back after it and see if you can finish the race. So post-race analysis, taking a look at your race, were you able to pee on the bike and the run? What color was it? Obviously, if it's very dark, it's concentrated and you haven't hydrated enough. How was your heart rate, your power, your pace relative to your expectations? Did you meet those expectations? How was your energy level throughout? I just completed a half Ironman a couple of weeks ago, and my energy level stayed high through the whole thing. I was able to hydrate and take my nutrition in as I had planned on. I didn't feel great, but my energy level was still pretty good. How sore were you afterward? If you're not taking in enough nutrition and hydration, you may be exceptionally sore after your race. You're probably going to be sore anyway, but you'll be exceptionally sore if you didn't. And how was your attitude throughout? Um, I remember one race, this was the Hanu 70.3 race in Hawaii, and I was really struggling towards the end of the run. And one of my one of my racing buddies was behind me, and I think I was at about mile 10, And I remember him going around me in an aid station, and he was just happy and cheerful and just talking to the people at the aid station, telling them, hey, how's it going? And I thought, man, that's the attitude I wish I had at this point in the race. So here are a few tips for you. First of all, try bonking in practice. Be careful with this one. Obviously, you don't want to, hurt yourself during the practice of the bonk. But I have one of my triathlon buddies and mentors actually would do this. He would go out for a long bike ride and purposely not take enough nutrition with him to see how it felt or where that edge was. As I mentioned before, it's easier to fuel on the bike. So really concentrate on getting enough calories in during the bike. That way, if you're a little bit short on the run, you should be able to still complete it. Don't be afraid to walk the aid stations on the run. Make sure you get what you need. A tiny little cup may not get you enough fluid to get you, through the rest of the race. Make sure your carb load 48 to 72 hours before the race. We know this one. We tend to take in more sodium and more carbs before the race. It is a good tip. And then eat easily digested carbs 2 to 3 hours before the race. I eat things like bagels and muffins and cereal. Some people don't find milk particularly easy to digest, but that's what I do. Seems to work for me. But make sure they're easily digested carbs. In addition, caffeine can save the day. Not too much because you can get stomach distress and spend extra time in the porta potties, but it does reduce the feeling of fatigue for many people. Monitor your heart rate, power, and pace. It should be similar to that you see in training. If it's not, then chances are you're not going to be able to maintain it. And then obviously this is another one that a lot of A-type personality people have is training too much going into a race. You can definitely be overtrained and that could cause a bonk for you as well. So, what do you do now? Well, if you're looking for a coach, looking for some help, I'd love to be your coach. And right now I've got a free 14-day free trial of TriDot and personalized coaching. Don't need a credit card to sign up for it and continue with any of the 6 options that I've got after that period from $14.99 to $450 per month. And I'll see you at the races.